Hello everybody, my name is Novi and welcome back to the channel. I'm sure many of you know at this point, but if you don't, the G1 Climax 33 was how this channel came to be. I reviewed every single night, I watched every single match, all 119 of them, and since then we've branched out into so many different things. I don't think I'll ever have the capacity to do that again. It was a lot, but I always like giving a little preview to the G1 each year to kind of remember where I came from, go back to my roots for just a second. Of course, given that, I want to be positive. I want to say something nice about the historic event that we have in front of us, this very romantic wrestling tournament. But this year, I am a little skeptical of what's been put together for me to watch. I'm not gonna lie. Before I jump into the tournament though, one big thing that happened last week has to be mentioned, and that one I will not hold back. But before then, make sure to leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel where we're always talking grabs. Okay, the thing I have to mention, the new IWGP World Heavyweight Champion, Zack Sabre Jr. Now, before I say what I really want to say, I like Zack. I think he's a very good wrestler. I enjoy quite a bit of his matches, and I don't think his previous IWGP title reign was all that bad up until Wrestle Kingdom. But what the fuck is Gato thinking giving him the belt again? Forgive me if I'm speaking out of turn, but this is probably the coldest Zack has ever been, the least main event he's felt in a very long time, and not something the fans were asking for by any means. Of course, I did see the news that Goto is injured. Whether or not he picked that up in the Zack match is anyone's guess. But there had to be someone better out there to take over in his place than Zack, even if that was the case. We're going off that being the case. It might not be. Goto was the people's champion. He has been for a very long time. He's been the driving force in a lot of people's New Japan enjoyment this year. And to not capitalize on that in any real way is a real shame. And I would be lying if I said it didn't diminish my already a little diminished interest in the G1 this year. I really loved Goto as champion, and I thought the overarching narratives that could be formed with him on top would kind of bring it all together. But now I again worry about my investment in a tournament that's supposed to define New Japan's year to come, really. I think we do need to get into the blocks though, because there are some exciting storylines to talk through outside of this all-encompassing discussion. So starting with the A block, which features Oleg Boltin, Evil, David Finlay, Hiroki Goto, Callum Newman, Sanada, Hiroshi Tanahashi, Yota Tsuji, Yuya Uemura, and very likely Ryohei Oiwa. Of course, we already talked a bit about Hiroki Goto, and I have no clue how he'll fare because of it. He could go 500. He could be at the top of the block. He might not even be in the tournament at all. It's such a strange decision for New Japan to make. It's really anyone's guess on what he ends up doing for real. Second most interesting name there is Yota Tsuji, whose run also kind of changes with Zack Sabre Jr. on top. Before that switch, I was going to come on here and gush about how I think he should win, how he should dominate his block, all these different things, but while that may still be true, while I still lean that way, I do kind of find myself questioning a little bit, you know? His recent loss of the IWGP Global Heavyweight Championship to Gabe Kidd at Dominion does kind of quell those fears a little bit, but once again, they are still there. It does still seem like New Japan is lining him up for that big push people continue to say that he needs, and I think he's ready for it, but it's all about if they will actually pull the trigger. Another couple of names I think fit in that category to a little bit of a lesser degree is Yuya Uemura and Ryohei Oiwa, who I've continued to feel stronger and stronger about when it comes to their potential. I would even argue that Oiwa is closer to being a top guy for New Japan on a pure skill level than any of his contemporaries. It's a hot take, I do know that. I'm sure many of you don't agree, but I just see the vision with him. I would also say that Uemura has continued to get better and better since his return from TNA, his excursion, at a kind of staggering rate. So while I don't think these two are going to win this thing, I wouldn't be surprised if they made it out of the A block. Someone who I actually do think could win the whole thing is David Finlay though. I won't lie, I, alongside everyone else at the start of this year, thought Finlay was out of there. I was fully convinced that his New Japan run was coming to a close. But nope, he's still around, and he's still delivering some of the best performances of anyone on that roster this year. Tsuji at Kingdom, Brody at Dynasty, Orimura, Zack Sabre Jr., Shota even, and of course the Goto title defense as well. I mean, the guy's just been killing it. Not something I expected I would say about him considering my less than positive things to say last year, but he's turned a corner. And it's why I, circling back, think he has a real shot to win the G1 this year. It's not the strongest field in the world this year. He stuck around when so many thought he wasn't going to. I mean, I don't know. That kind of feels like it means something, but I do understand if New Japan are just completely going to avoid any of those possibilities. That makes sense too. They can't avoid and will likely encourage, however, a Hiroshi Tanahashi final G1 dream run. I don't know how that would make me feel. I mean, I guess I have to see the matches, but do I really? At the end of the day, he's the ace. How mad could you really be if he were to make it out of the blocks? And I think New Japan knows that most of their audience feels that same way. So when we get to predictions later, I'm throwing this out there right now, do not be surprised. Evil and Sonata are also in this block. Not that I could give a fuck. I think Evil is a pretty bad wrestler who has pretty bad matches, especially in the G1. And while I don't dislike Sonata, nor do I think he's a bad wrestler, his current form is it's incredibly uninspiring. All that to say, don't discount either of them to make it out of this block for some reason or another. That's just kind of what happens sometimes. Finally, we have the up-and-comers of the bunch, Callum Newman and Oleg Boltin, rounding us out. I actually think somewhat highly of Newman. I know that's not a particularly popular take, but I think there's a good bit of potential there. And seeing him face names like Tsuji, Oiwa, Yuya in a setting like this does intrigue me a lot. And I think even more highly of Boltin, who I think has figured it out to a pretty high degree. So I'm stoked he's in it again. I still think about his match with Takeshita last year, and I hope he's able to replicate a performance like that again this year. With that, we round out the A block and we switch gears to the B block, which is made up of El Phantasmo, Gabe Kidd, Drilla Maloney, Ren Narita, Great Okan, Zack Sabre Jr., Shingo Takagi, Konosuke Takeshita, Shota Umino, and likely Yoshihashi. That is a lineup that unfortunately doesn't inspire me really at all, if I'm being honest. I just feel like I know what every potential matchup looks like here. There's little room for surprises, and that just kind of sucks. Maybe the most interesting name here from New Japan is Drilla Maloney, who has been making his way into the heavyweight division this year. I think he's been really good there too, so seeing some of those fresh matchups here in a setting like the G1 it does intrigue me, no doubt. Outside of that, there's Gabe, but I've been asking myself how I feel about him really lately, and I can't lie to you guys, it's not all that positive. I have enjoyed him in a G1 setting in the past. He was my favorite wrestler to watch in G1 33. I would gush about his matches every single night, but now more than ever, I'm worried. I think he has a lot of bad instincts, a lot of bad traits that he's been delving into so much this year. So I'm gonna hold my breath. I'm not gonna say anything too crazy, but I am keeping a close eye on what his matches look like. ELP is always fun to watch. Zack Sabre Jr. is consistently enjoyable. Yoshihashi is rock solid, and Shingo is Shingo. Shota Umino is here too, but he falls into that Gabe Kidd category of concern as well to a much higher degree. I am terrified of the wrestler he is becoming. He has regressed as a worker. He had a bad tournament this year. I don't know what his future looks like, but I'm going to say this now. Gato is a fan. Gato is a big fan. There's a chance that he just leaves this block like it's nothing. Thinking about it too, I probably would have stuck him in A block just to get a little more consistency in his work. But, you know, it is what it is. He'll have to make the most out of B block. If Ren Narita gets color in every single match that he's in, I'll lock in. But something tells me that's not going to happen, so I probably won't be paying attention. Okan is, I guess, solid, but nothing to really engage with in full sincerity. Of course, all that said, there's one name, not from New Japan. I guess he has a New Japan contract, but, AEW wrestler. He's the focus of this block here. It's Konosuke Takeshita. He's the one guy in this entire tournament, and I'm being so serious. If he's in a graphic, no matter the opponent, you have to sit back and say, well, maybe that could be good. It's what he did last year the entire way, and it's what I expect him to do again this year, especially considering how good of a year in its totality he's had. His matches are the ones I and you should be seeking out. He's going to define G135, and I think that might be a little bit of a spoiler. But before we get into predictions, I'm holding myself back because I have to bring up an issue that I am incredibly worried about when it comes to the actual matches this year. New Japan has a long-developed main event style match. We all know it well, but let me take you through it for those who maybe don't. 20 plus minutes, slower build leading to a peak at the end filled with kickouts, drama, and hard-hitting action. And yeah, sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't, and I'll tell you why it doesn't work. Because, before, when that main event style was established, it was being worked with guys like Okada, Naito, and Tanahashi Omega going at their best. Those guys are all-time greats, so it works at a pretty consistent level, but these guys, their newer generation, not to say that they can't be all-time greats, shouldn't really be forced into that mold. It doesn't suit them well. The hit rate, it happens every now and again. They find a good pairing. It creates a good match, but it's just not consistent enough. Last year, this became an issue really fast. Only Takeshita was able to pull off what they were asking of their wrestlers. And I think it's just going to happen again. They've done nothing to tell me it will change. If so, it will hurt the matches. It will hurt this tournament. And it will hurt a lot of these young guys' stock going into a year where they're going to be even more relied on at the top of cards. If this becomes as big of an issue as I think it's going to be, you will see a video on it in the future because it annoys me pretty bad. So just keep an eye on it and get excited for that video because I have no doubt in my mind it's going to happen. So, lock in. Now, with that said, let's get into some predictions. I know you all love them. Everybody loves them. And I have them starting with who I think is going to come out of the A block. In the A1 spot, I have Yota Tsuji. In the A2, I have David Finlay. And in the A3, I have Hiroshi Tanahashi. Tsuji is the guy. I firmly believe it even still. Finlay is reliable in a big setting like that. And Tanahashi, once again, is simply the ace. On to the B block. In the A1 spot, I have Konosuke Takeshita. B2, I have Shota Umino. And B3, I have IWGP champion Zack Sabre Jr. Takeshita, as I said, is the guy. Shota may seem like an insane pick to all of you, but I guarantee you that Gedo is insane about him. And Zack is the world champion. He's making it through, but it'll be close. Now, filling out this bracket, round one, we have Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Shota Umino, and although Gedo loves Shota, it's the final G1 for the ace. That simply takes precedence. Bottom half of the bracket, we have David Finlay versus Zack Sabre Jr., and I would say a little bit of an upset. I have David Finlay defeating the IWGP World Champion. I think Zack is going to need at least one good challenger before Wrestle Kingdom, and who better than the always reliable David Finlay, who earns a shot like that here. Second round now, we have Yota Tsuji versus Hiroshi Tanahashi, and this is where the ace meets his G1 end. I believe too heavily in Tsuji. He is too much of the guy for there to be any sort of upset. Bottom half, we have Konosuke Takeshita versus David Finlay, and in this one, while being incredibly tough to choose, I have Takeshita moving on to the finals. Again, he is simply the guy to beat in this tournament, and I think he'll be built as such. It'll make it all the sweeter, after all, when Tsuji defeats him in the finals. He is my pick to win G1 Climax 35. If there's anyone to trust at the top level amongst the young talent in New Japan, it's Tsuji. A world where Tsuji takes on Goto at Wrestle Kingdom for the belt is a lot more interesting of a world to live in, but still, the one we currently exist in, Zack Sabre Jr. will give him a good match, I have no doubt. Outside of that, though, New Japan just needs to cement a talent now. They have to pick. They can't wait any longer, and I think that they're going to do it right here. And that is going to do it for this video, everybody. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, make sure to leave a like down below. While you're down there, make sure to comment your thoughts on G1 Climax 35, on any of my picks, or anything else you want to talk about. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel where we are always talking graps. I will have a couple of videos out shortly. You will not go without Novi during All In Week. I'm sure you all just blew your streamers and celebrated and maybe yipped and yawed. Maybe yahooed. I don't know. Maybe you did something like that. But I promise you'll see some videos here soon. I'm fucking going crazy, I think. Regardless of that, thank you all so much for watching. Much love. Be well. Stay safe. And have a good week, folks. Hangman is going to win All In Texas. That's my final note to end on. Have a good one, folks. Peace.